Whoa, somebody looks like garbage this morning. You groaned, your half-awake mind recognizing the voice of Denki entering the kitchen, finger guns and all. How you wished to chuck your mug of coffee at him, but you couldn't risk wasting the only thing keeping you sane. You heard another set of footsteps. Yikes, looks like you weren't the only one who woke up on the wrong side of the bed. You lazily looked back up, immediately tensing at who walked in. Good morning, Hanta, you greeted as he passed you by. Morning. That was all he said as he poured himself a cup of coffee, immediately leaving the kitchen with a ruffle of his bedhead hair. Not once did he spare you a glance. You should have expected this behavior, and it was clear Denki didn't. What the hell? He asked, baffled eyes shifting between you and the long-gone man. Where's the early banter? What happened between you two? You looked down at your half-empty mug, your hazy mind recollecting what happened just hours ago. You and Hanta were drunk on rainwater, childish promises, and cheesy love songs. Then all of a sudden, something in you was ignited. But everything was quickly smothered when Hanta backed away, refusing to meet your eyes. I'm sorry. Those two words played like a broken record, the rewinding memory of him disappearing inside piercing your heart. It was blatantly obvious that your best friend was avoiding you, and that thought kept you up all night. And it hurts. What you thought was a step in the right direction ended up flipping your world upside down and leaving you bewildered and aching for his touch. I'll be outside, you muttered to your blonde-haired friend, not waiting for a reply as you shot up from your seat. His response was a muffled string of nonsense, words that entered from one ear and out the other. The floor was cold under your feet, and it was even more so once you stepped outside. The rain had stopped, leaving a cold breeze in its wake, like a cruel reminder of what occurred the night before. You sighed, nothing but a loose sweater to keep you warm under the nipping air. You hugged your tired frame, a half-hearted attempt to warm yourself and to erase the lingering hold of the raven-haired man. He had left a mark on you, a permanent stain on your heart that you tried to scrub away, only for it to grow and consume your entire being until you were craving him. A sudden weight was gently placed on your shoulders, the familiar material of Hanta's blanket making your heart simultaneously swell and ache. You turned, hoping to see the man you were longing for, but the bright red of Ajiro greeted you instead. Hey. He flashed you a soft grin. Denki told me what happened. Everything okay? He stood beside you, red eyes glistening in concern. I guess, you answered with a sigh, huddling into the blanket. Why you're feeling so difficult? What do you mean? Ichi, things are escalating so quickly. All it took was one fucking day to pretend like we're dating, and I thought everything would be fine afterwards and we would go back to our normal lives. But normal? You didn't even know the word. Not when you didn't have Hanta Sero with you. Not when you didn't feel his hand encase yours. Not when you didn't wake up to his stupid smiling face. Something happened between me and Hanta last night. We were so close, and he just backed away. What do I do when that happens? Pretend like it didn't? This fake relationship bullshit took on a life of its own, AG. You sniffed, feeling tears sting your eyes. And you want to know the funny thing? I don't want it to stop. I can't see myself without him anymore. You heard him sigh, gingerly wiping a stray tear that fell from your eyes. Your blurry vision caught him giving a sympathetic smile, but he never got to respond when a clearing of the throat sounded from the backyard. Aunt Irie. Ajiro's voice speaking her name made you freeze. Wiping your eyes, you caught your aunt making her way over, the tall figure of Hanta just behind her. You didn't even realize your aunt was here. Nor did you realize she and Hanta were in the gazebo the entire time you were sulking. You gripped the blanket as Hanta passed you yet again, returning inside the same way he did the night before. He didn't look at you. You didn't say anything. "Do you mind giving us a moment, Ajiro?" she asked in a soft voice. You didn't hear him respond, but you felt a comforting pat on your back as his warmth faded, following after the raven-haired man. You let out a quiet sniff as your aunt took Ajiro's place. "Auntie, You started, voice hoarse, but she silenced you when she placed her hand over yours. "It's all right, honey. Hanta told me everything. How you two pretended to be together and all." There was a sad smile on her face, and your lip quivered. It shocked you when you learned that Hanta came clean. Maybe he got tired of playing pretend after last night's encounter. Maybe he realized he didn't want anything more than a simple friendship with you. Someone had to say something, and it had to be him. You threw yourself at her, and she wrapped her arms around your trembling frame. "I just didn't want to see you upset," you admitted. "I never meant to force you to fake a relationship for my sake, dear," she said, rubbing your back. "You know I just want to see you happy with someone, and I thought Hanta could be the one to bring you that happiness. It was foolish of me to force that on the both of you." You stayed like that for a moment, before she pulled you to face her. She still had a smile of melancholy as she turned towards the backyard. You joined her. "Do you remember your uncle? My husband?" she brought up suddenly. You hesitantly nodded, vague memories of the man floating in your head. "He passed away when I was young. Why?" "I loved him dearly. Even when he passed on, I never stopped loving him," she recalled, her smile fading momentarily. Your eyes grew downcast. Your uncle was a kind man, from what you remembered, and he wanted nothing more than to see your aunt happy. You remembered the familiar crinkle of his smile and the sound of his laughter when he was with her, and it caused your heart to ache in a sentimental way. Mom always said you had that kind of love with him, a love that surpassed everything, as she put it. We did, and I can tell there's something special between you and Hanta. Something that will surpass everything, if you let it. You paused, tugging at the blanket on your shoulders. "I don't know." She took your face in her hands, a firm gaze on you. "Answer me this, dear. Can you see yourself being with him?" An evident yes flowed from your lips before you could stop it. "Do you love him?" Another yes. Your heart was aching, your mind was a jumbled mess, but you were sure. Your aunt smiled, thumbs brushing against the apples of your cheeks. "Then love him. Love him the way I loved your uncle." "But how can I be sure he feels the same? I just spoke to him. I don't think he will say otherwise." She sounded so certain, and it lit a fire of hope within you. You embraced her again, grateful that she was here with you. Though your stay was coming to an end, and life was soon returning to normal, your heart held a sense of determination as you faced the day onward. 2 days remain. You'll be fine. You didn't feel fine. The drive back was tense, abnormally quiet for your friends, save for the music on the radio. Bidding your family goodbye seemed like days ago. Granted, it had only been 3 hours. You blamed the heavy tension in the van, and you desperately wished someone would say something. You glanced to your right, past your friends, to Hanta on the other side. He had his chin resting on his palm, gazing out the window with a neutral expression. You quietly sighed to yourself, mirroring him as you looked out your window, trying to erase him from your mind for the time being. Funny how a single circumstance led you to now. You were friends, for crying out loud. You faced worse scenarios than this. But this was different. You developed crushes and had your fair share of relationships. But this was on your goddamn best friend. One that you grew up with. One that watched you slip into your edgy phase, took care of you when you were sick or anxious, literally beat up a guy that called you some offensive slur. You had everything on the line, and that line could snap if he didn't reciprocate. You didn't want to risk it, but at the same time, you didn't want to remain in limbo forever. More hours passed, and Hanta was snapped from his daze when Kowalski turned to a gas station. One by one, the 4 guys exited the van for a quick bathroom break and to purchase more snacks for the road. Mina remained where she was, mainly to keep your sleeping figure company. Hanta left the convenience store, a bag of chips in hand. His mind was still hazy that he almost missed running into Kowalski, whose arms were crossed and clearly displeased. What happened? Hanta was about to ask for context, but he was cut off. Don't fuck around. What happened between you two? The raven-haired finally caught on, letting out a deep sigh. I don't have to tell you, Kat. The irritation was obvious on Kowalski's scowl, dragging an exasperated hand down his face. He didn't want to admit it, but he had been watching the both of you from the rearview mirror ever since you left, and he knew he had no part to play in this game of mutual pining, but it was beginning to drive him up the walls. Well, whatever the hell you did, it clearly made them upset. So for fuck's sake, apologize to them. You care for them. Fuck, you love them, right? He jabbed a finger into Hanta's chest. The man bit his lip, evident guilt in his eyes as he nodded. So fucking act like it. Kowalski pulled back, crossing his arms again. Look, I'm not telling you to confess or some shit. That's your decision to make. But if you really care for them, then you wouldn't go out of your way to act like they don't exist. Hanta was taken aback, to say the least. He didn't know the blonde would be so invested in his love life. Hey, don't you fucking look at me like that. I'm only saying this because you're making everyone tense as shit. He rebutted, walking back to the van with a string of hushed curses. Hanta couldn't help but grin, turning back to the van. Mina was staring at him from the window, eyes wide like she heard the whole conversation. He saw her nod her head without breaking from his gaze, a means to beckon him over. I think it's best if you... She finished her sentence by tapping the space beside her, exiting the van and letting Hanta take over her seat. Upon closer look, she had the look reminiscent of a scolding mother, bright yellow eyes shifting from Hanta to your sleeping form. Talk to them. That's what she meant. Reluctantly taking over Mina's seat beside you, Hanta felt you turn, bleary eyes opening and a yawn escaping your mouth. Hanta? Your voice was raspy, rubbing the remaining sleep from your eyes as you sat up. His smile was a touch awkward, masking it by gently ruffling your hair. Buenos dias, he greeted with his usual playful tone. I'm glad to see you're finally up, sleepyhead. Though the thought of last night's event still lingered, the grueling hours of tense silence couldn't fare against the tired smile tugging at your lips. It left him feeling both relieved and regretful of his behavior that morning. You were his best friend. He should have known better than to let his feelings get in the way of your lifelong friendship. The rest of the group returned not long after, the van leaving the gas station with hearts lighter and tension-free. Overlapping banter and blasting music rang through the ride, full of mirth the same as the beginning of a vacation, poking fun and singing without a care in the world. You watched as the world passed you by, a harmonious gradient of green and orange that reflected on your face. You basked in the atmosphere of comfort and found family shared between you and your friends, glancing at each and every one of them with warmly lit eyes. You caught Hanta's gaze in the process, and instead of shying away in a flustered haze, you held it with serene contentment, which he seemed to return, bringing you to his chest. Hey, he muttered beneath your friend's lively chattering. I wanted to apologize for this morning. That was A really shitty move on my part.
He didn't meet your eyes for a moment, gently rubbing at your arm. Your heart bubbled with emotion at the obvious guilt on his face. He never meant to hurt you. You knew that, feeling your cheeks puff up in a relieved and reassuring smile. No words were needed to let him know you forgive him. Your arms around his frame were more than enough. You happily snuggled into his sweater, breathing in that familiar citrusy scent as your mind drifted off.
Tenki, just wake them up. No, you do it. For God's sake, will the two of you stop fucking around?
Katsuki, shush! Look at how adorable they are.
We're gonna freeze out here.
A cacophony of voices stirred you from your slumber, immediately recognizing the poorly executed whispers of your friends. You would have easily ignored them if it weren't for your pillow to suddenly wrap its arms around you, cursing out your friends for disturbing a perfectly good nap before lifting you from the car seat. You peered up to catch Hanta's bedhead hair and tired scowl as he carried you into the motel room, settling into one of the beds with you still bundled in his arms. His eagerness for a good night's rest couldn't help but make you laugh, but there was no way you were sleeping without freshening up and changing, and you made it clear to the giant koala wrapped around you.
Do you have to?
He mumbled out. Yes, mister. And you have to as well. You flicked his nose, to which he barely reacted, only snuggling deeper into your side. It wasn't often that you saw Hanta as the sluggish, overly affectionate child he was currently, and a part of you wanted to milk this for as long as you could. However, sleep was a thing you had been lacking since the night before, and your brief naps in the van barely sufficed. Somehow, Hanta was more difficult to pry out of bed than you originally expected. Even when you tried to shimmy yourself out, the huge dork would move with you until half your body was dangling off the mattress. Wow, this is just pathetic, Mina commented lightheartedly, watching the whole ordeal while eating a bag of chips. I'm well aware. Han, you turned back to the half-awake man, who was quietly mumbling into your shirt. The least you could do was come with me to get ready for bed. Another groan drawled out, but he finally made an effort to lift himself up. You waddled over to the bathroom with Hanta's arms still around your shoulders, Hanta only letting you go to change clothes. In the middle of you and Hanta brushing your teeth, you heard a knock on the door. The guys and I are gonna get takeout, so it'll just be you and Hanta here. Do you want anything? You heard Mina ask. You informed her of what you wanted, and Hanta followed suit, finishing up your nightly routine. By the time you emerged from the bathroom, freshened up and more than ready to call it a night, Hanta was already latched onto you.
Can we go to bed now? Didn't get any sleep last night.
He yawned out, barely able to keep himself upright. You quietly agreed, the warmth radiating from Hanta and your own lack of sleep beginning to weigh you down. The both of you settled into one of the beds, rolling over so you were laying on Hanta's chest. His heartbeat was steady beneath you, the slow rhythm of his breathing gently lulling you to sleep. You could feel yourself starting to drift, but the sound of Hanta's muttering caught your attention. You glanced up to his face, eyes barely managing to focus. His eyes were shut, lips slightly parted with quiet whispers tumbling from them. He looked so sweet. You didn't expect those tired eyes to flutter open, catching you in the act of admiring his face. With a timid squeak, you quickly ducked back into his chest, tightening your grip on him out of embarrassment. A brief silence washed over the two of you, before Hanta pulled you up so your face was at level with his. His eyes were hazy, cheeks soft with a pink-tinted sheen. Your eyes betrayed you as they traveled to his lips, to which Hanta gave a tired smile.
You're so pretty.
Such honest words, backed with an honest expression. Your eyes widened in surprise, shock overtaking the need to sleep. Hanta didn't seem to be fazed by what he just said, or he was too tired to care. But the warmth running up your neck was unmistakable. Where did that come from? You asked cheekily, pretending like his unexpected compliment didn't affect you.
Can't I tell the person I care about most that they're pretty?
His words were jumbled together, making you laugh quietly.
I just want you to know how much you mean to me. I've been such an ass to you all day, and it was selfish and unfair of me to come clean to your aunt without letting you know first.
Hun, I told you it's fine. She was bound to find out we weren't together.
But I wish we were.
The whisper was inaudible, Hanta shutting his eyes to prevent himself from seeing your reaction. His overexhaustion and unfiltered mouth really just let that one slip. Despite being so close, you didn't hear it. Or simply didn't respond to it, Hanta could only guess, resting your head on the crook of his neck with a sigh. Today had been emotionally draining, and now that things have seemingly gone back to normal for you and Hanta, you didn't want to do or say anything to ruin it. But the genuineness that trickled from his eyes when he called you pretty. After a mere few days of faking a relationship, the simple compliment knocked the breath out of you, harder than you ever anticipated. Like all the times he complimented you throughout your life was gathered into this one moment. All those innocent, playful, comforting times he called you beautiful, pretty, handsome. It was like you felt all those emotions at once. Hanta brought you even closer to him, careful enough not to crush you. You were hyper-aware of how his legs tangled with yours, listening as his breathing leveled to a steady rhythm. You could feel the rapid pulsing of your heart, breathing in the scent of Hanta's cologne as you desperately tried to calm your emotions. "You're a dork," you muttered, a half-hearted means to rein in your feelings. You felt Hanta's chest rumble with quiet laughter as the weight of sleep gripped you once more, shutting your eyes with a smile not leaving your lips. Hanta snuggled into you with a sigh, landing a discreet peck on your head.
But I'm your dork.
The room door slowly drew open, the other four returning with takeout bags and drinks in hand. They quickly took notice of the sleeping duo, Mina quietly cooing like a doting mother.
Aw, how cute.
Passed out before they even got to eat,
Katsuki added, taking a seat on the other bed. Adro patted his shoulder in reassurance.
They'll eat when they wake up. Today's been hard for both of them. I'm impressed they haven't said anything to each other yet.
Denki chimed, snagging a potato wedge from one of the takeout bags.
It's been, what, almost 2 decades now?
I've seen worse, Mina mused. At least these two actually have the chance to be together.
If they stop dancing around the fucking topic.
Katsuki quipped with a huff.
Like you wanna talk, Mr. Katsuki. I couldn't confess to Adro, so I told him to go to hell, Bakugo.
Denki's cheeky comment caused Katsuki to burst into a fiery red, flustering Adro as he sank to the floor. Denki was muffling his laughter as he tried to hide in the safety of the bathroom, away from the fuming embarrassment of his explosive friend. In a fit of quiet rage, Katsuki grabbed one of the pillows, ready to beat the ever-loving hell out of Denki. But before he was able to lift himself off the bed, another pillow was thrown and made direct contact with his face, muffling the verbal onslaught Katsuki was about to throw down. As the pillow dropped to the floor, Katsuki saw Hanta, half awake with a pissed-off look on his face that was frankly way too out of character for the man. Hanta gestured to the sleeping figure in his arms, then to Katsuki, then pointed to the rest of his friends.
All of you, shut up.